Everybody, I think we're going to get started. It's 7:05-ish. Call us to order and start walking through the agenda for the evening. 2.0, I have no adjustments to the agenda. Anybody else? 3.0, audience and communication. If anybody has anything to say, our audience is somewhat limited this evening. Thank you for coming, Mr. Yanachko. And 4.0, our presentation this evening is on library education and world languages, and I will turn it over. Do you want me to shut off the lights?
I can, that would be great.
I think we will show.
So first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity tonight. And I just wanted to start out by saying that the library program is more than a room full of books. Whenever I try to explain it to people, I find myself doing this kind of thing. I'm like, it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You can tell I'm a kinesthetic learner. And so as I thought about it a little more, I came up with this image of a tree. And I think it fits really well. If the library program, if you can imagine that as the trunk, and the branches are all the ways in which I kind of reach out to the school community, then the leaves, of course, are our students. And the beauty of this image really is that trees change and grow constantly, and that's also true of a quality school library program. Every day is different for me. That's the way it should be. The program grows and changes to best meet the needs of the entire school community. As I go through the slide, you'll notice that the headers are taken directly from our CCS mission statement. I think really that's the roots that are supporting the tree. And the image on the left is probably what you think about first when you think about the library program. That is me in the story square with a group of kiddos. And read-alouds are always an opportunity for me to teach and reinforce a variety of literacy skills. Students here, you can kind of tell they're in motion. I have them actually pretending that they're inside a museum to kind of connect to what's going on in the book. And I really find that picture books for our youngest learners they provide the building blocks for critical thinking and evaluation skills. The two pictures on the left are two things that were new to me this year, but I think were so successful for the students that we'll continue to do. International Dot Day and Global Read Aloud are both initiatives that use literature as a springboard to engage students in shared stories, fostering creativity, and allowing them to reach out into the larger world beyond CCS. So the one in the bottom right is my favorite. That is a group of our kindergartners learning a dance via Skype through another classroom in Michigan, and the dance was built upon a shared story. So I thought that was pretty amazing. You'll have to bear with me as I toggle back and forth a bit because I really want you to see this short video. This is Krista Duthie-Fox, and this is kind of her perspective on the collaboration piece between the library program and the classroom.
Heidi's actually an extension of each team, pre-K through 8. Because of Heidi's existing program, integration of subject areas is more doable. She attends team meetings to understand what resources are necessary for integrated lessons. And her library program is currently flexible enough to provide this caliber of service to our teachers and our students. And we're lucky to have this library model.
So I thank Krista for that. Moving on to the next slide, we think creatively and critically through the library program. One of our newest sparks for creativity, of course, the pictures on the right are our makerspace materials. They're not just for the library kind of houses them, just like we do lots of other resources, books, digital resources. We curate them, we keep track of them. It makes good organizational sense and good budget sense, I think. And we're really rolling this out with 3rd and 4th graders at the moment, and there's a pretty amazing hum happening in the room when this is going on. The makerspace materials are really there to foster that creativity, critical thinking, problem-solving skills. Another way that students think critically through the library program is the picture up on the left is one of my favorite parts of my day when I get to go into a classroom and co-teach. This was an example of a lesson I co-taught with Krista that we just saw in the video, and students are analyzing primary sources, in this case photographs, to get ready for a writing project on Young Writers Project that all is tied into their class-wide book group book. We live responsibly and respectfully. Students learn about copyright and fair use. They are introduced in little bits in the younger grades, and then by the time they're 7th and 8th graders, I really feel like they've got a solid foundation. Just this week, I was really happy because a 7th grader came down to see me and said, Mrs. Eustace, I'm trying to cite this source, but I don't know how to do it. Can you help me? I want to make sure I do it right. It happened to be an ebook, so it was a little tricky. We also teach digital literacy and internet safety, and the best ways to teach those things are embedded in a unit that classroom teachers are already working on. The slide in the middle is a little hard to see, but that's guidelines for how to post on a blog and reply to other students' posts. So it's opening up that dialogue in a digital format. We contribute positively to our community. The library is a space for sharing, so it's often a presentation space. After students have created something, that's a great space to share it with their peers. The making activities, one of our first forays into that was 4th graders building, designing, really engineering cardboard houses for our little reading buddies in the library. And then the kindergartners absolutely went wild over these things. And they thought it was so incredible that the older students had taken the time to do that because they really felt like they did it for them. It's a place for students to teach each other. The picture in the bottom left is a 2nd grader actually teaching a 6th grader how KidBlog works, because in this case, the 2nd grader is the expert. Students help me out all the time in just a library operations. I have some volunteers that come in and help shelve books. They have helped organize the makerspace materials. This all really gives them ownership over the space. The middle picture is just a screenshot of Chris Gerson's class's KidBlog. And here they are promoting the Red Clover Book Award books to other readers through their blogs. If you haven't checked that out, I definitely encourage you to do it. There's some pretty amazing writing there. We pursue excellence in our academic and individual interests. So that could be a 1st grader just learning and really fine-tuning their very first ebook. It could be a 3rd grader becoming an expert in a passion, researching that passion and then sharing it with others. It could be students that come to use the library space as an area to really dive deeply into a project and know that they have support from me if they need it. We have had the great pleasure of having 2 Vermont authors come to visit our students this year through the gracious help of our awesome PTO. Because, boy, nothing sparks passion like somebody that's passionate about what they do. And we also have welcomed in people from our own backyard in Charlotte through things like Reading to End Racism. And really the library program also is about the freedom to read and to really pursue our individual interests, really no matter what they are, anything under the sun. Our 2 middle schoolers in the bottom middle, they're holding up a piece of paper. It's quite simple, but it's pretty powerful. And it says, we need diverse books because we need to express ourselves. And that really, really sums it up for me. And that's it for me. I would not be a librarian worth my salt, though, if I did not leave you with a takeaway. So you get bookmarks. There's a link to the library blog, so if I didn't talk about anything you're curious about, please visit that, because there's lots of stuff there. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
I have a question,
Yeah.
if I could. I just want to say, Heidi, that you have really changed my view of what a librarian does in the years that I've come to know you and see your work. You are everywhere and doing so many things, and you've been integral to a number of projects, including the Reading to End Racism project. We would not have been able to get that off the ground without you. I do have a question about next year, because you've had, I think, a full-time assistant, and my presumption is that that person has given you the flexibility to be able to move around the building as much as you've been able to, and to be involved in so many different things. So I'm wondering what the plan is for next year.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Jeff. I've done some preliminary work so far. I've visited other schools that operate with just one teacher librarian and no support staff. Some of them employ volunteer help. So it's been tricky to find one that's a K-8 school with our kind of same population that kind of doesn't, I think we might be one of the first. So I guess I'll be a trailblazer, but but I've gotten some great ideas from those colleagues, and some great, like self-checkout station, for one example, for like grades 3 and up. Because as you know, we have this steady, we have scheduled classes, but we also have this steady trickle in and out all the time. And especially for those older kids, there's absolutely no reason they can't do that. Some of them are already doing that. So, and aside from that, I've met with administration. They know my worries. They have been very supportive in saying, let us know what you need to make it work. So, and like I said, if I couldn't handle change, I'm in the wrong job.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Are we on? Yeah, I guess so.
Buenas tardes.
Bonsoir. I think you all know all of us, both of us, but just in case not, I'm Cynthia Netherwood.
And I'm Sarah Pearson, Madame Pearson, and Señorita Sara. I have 3 names.
And Senora Netherwood, right. And we're going to talk to you about our amazing world language program at CCS. So the opening slide, we're just giving you an overview of what we put together in this slide presentation. We're going to be talking about how students interpret language, how they use it interpersonally, and how they present with it. So you look at, we'll show you some of the materials that they look at. We didn't bring in our textbook. We do have a traditional textbook, but we're looking more at things you would find online. We have a few examples of kids actually practicing the language, and so you'll get to see them performing in the classroom. Do you want to make the images bigger?
Sure, you want to.
So I'll just tell you briefly what these images are, because they represent some of the work of our students. These are masks made for Mardi Gras, and they don't just make the masks and hang them on the wall. They actually wear them and put on parades in classes where we've been invited to do a quick little parade and presentation. That's a 6th grade activity. And the 4th graders, who Sarah and I taught for the first time last year, created Serpientes y Escaleras, also known as Chutes and Ladders boards, as a review activity at the end of the year. Every time they landed on certain spaces, they had to answer a question about a word they'd learned. And if they got it right, they got to stay there, and if not, they went back. So they still, the 4th graders this year have made them, and I occasionally get, well, can we just play this Serpientes y Escaleras game today? No, but we'll play them again at some point. So that's just a little introduction. Here is our philosophy. How about if I just let you read that on your own? I don't think you need to hear me reading it out loud.
the general information?
I think that the last line in that, I try to drive home a lot with my older kids on a regular basis, that you don't have to become a Spanish learner, you don't have to get a degree in Spanish to use it in life, or French, that you will probably end up living in a city like so many of we were talking earlier about our kids who grew up in Charlotte, who spend time in New York City and out in LA and other places, and having that second language, how far it takes them. So it's not, you're just learning it for now, it's something that is like a part of your baggage and your luggage wherever you go.
Okay, so I'll switch over to some general information. One thing I did want to point out is that Tika and I created this Google site, so this was a learning experience in itself, because we've never created a Google site before. So with the help of Ed and some other people, we were able to create this and collaborate on that. So this is just a general slide that talks about what the languages we teach and what instructional time that we have. So French is currently taught in grades 5 through 8 by myself. Spanish at the moment is taught in grades 1 and 2 by Diana Clayton, and I teach 3rd grade Spanish, and Tika teaches 4th through 8th grade Spanish. And as far as instructional time, grades 1 and 2 at this moment get 2 times a week for 40 minutes. I hope that's correct. And grades 3 and 4 get 3 times a week, 40 minutes, and then they get a small 25-minute block. That's their 3rd time. And then grade 5 gets 3 times a week for 50 minutes, and grades 6 through 8 is currently getting 4 times a week for 50 minutes. So that's our instructional time. So basically, for the rest of our presentation, we've divided our presentation into the 3 major parts of communication, which are interpretive, and interpersonal, and presentational. So every lesson that we design, or every unit that we design, we make sure that we try to hit all 3 of those within that. So interpretive is kids are reading, they might be listening and interpreting language. So we could click on that. Does the gato y mosca go larger?
bigger?
I don't think so. Okay.
I think it might.
Okay,
It's just a
so here's an
screenshot.
example of a screenshot of a video. This is what we're teaching actually in 3rd and 4th grade. The video is black and white, there's no sound, but there's a lot of things going on in the video. So the kids are learning all the vocabulary, they're learning the verbs, the lamps falling, the whatever is happening, and they're cute little 2-minute clips. So they've been having a lot of fun with that.
To narrate that, yeah.
Um,
Do I just do that?
yeah.
No. Uh-oh, sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing, I should have left you over here. Can you skip back up? It's here, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Go back.
And you're on this one.
Interpretive.
Okay,
Yeah.
so some other things.
Yeah. So some other things as far as reading or interpreting. So we read menus online. We look at class schedules from around the world. Internet shopping, online weather reports we show kids when we're doing our weather units. So they're listening to real weather reports. So they're interpreting that language. Tika uses the BBC series La Vida Loca, so they're listening to that language, reading advertisements, watching ESPN in the target language.
Today we watched Stephen Curry.
Okay.
They didn't understand everything, but they knew
Right.
that name.
And reading news reports, visiting monuments, and virtual travel. So those are all examples of how we, how kids interpret language.
Next
You want
slide.
to go to the next one? And as far as interpersonal communication, so this one is face-to-face communication. So we do a lot in the classroom of create little activities where kids have a certain task, and so they have to talk to each other in the target language and for a certain amount of time, and then they self-assess themselves afterwards. And this is a video. This is going to be a little bit. So this is right in the classroom during an immersion activity. You won't be able to hear what they're saying, but you'll get an idea of what the classroom situation looks like, sounds like. The benefit of this is everybody's talking at the same time, so they're all getting lots of touches with the language. They happen to have cards in this example. So that's just an example of an immersion activity. The other thing, let's see, right, interpersonal. So students also post writing on the YWP. So that would be a little bit of presenting their writing, but then they're able to talk back and forth with each other and comment on the writing in the language. So they might say, oh, I love that restaurant that you visited. I like it too, or whatever. And I'll set up a sort of situation where they have questions, and then they make comments on other people's writings. So that's where it gets to be back and forth, the interpersonal part. And then in this last part here, we have a picture of, so in 4th grade, last year, students made Lego houses. And the conversational piece about that is they'll all be around in the classroom with their little Lego house. Half of the students will come around and start talking, or they'll show their house, and then they'll ask them questions. So like, ¿dónde está? Like, where is this? And the person can maybe say, oh, here is the whatever. So that's how you get the kind of the back and back for the interpersonal communication.
And also making positive comments. They learn how to say, oh, I like this, or why did you do it, or why is this purple? So that you're getting them used to that natural flow of questions and answers.
Right. So I'm going to move on because we want to quickly go on so we don't miss the last one. And then our last mode of communication is presentational, which, so here there isn't, I guess in this first video there probably is some back and forth, but it's memorized.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more presentational, and then we have a couple other examples of what kids have done to present language that they've learned.
So the first one, the 5th graders, this is a very recent one, this is just a few days ago. They are acting out a story where they are different animals. The costumes have nothing to do with animals, it's just my old dress-up box. But they come and they are asking, those boys are going to be pájaros, I think they're birds, and they're looking for a place that's high. I don't actually remember until we hear them talking. And then it all forms this it's a series of chapters in a book where all the different animals come in, and then at the end, the bunny, who is Dicey Manning, puts out a sign saying something like, I'll let you watch. I don't have to keep talking about it.
Oh, they're frogs. Okay, so there we get an example of that. And the next one we have is a, let's see, what do we have? Okay, yeah, so this is, I did a project with WeVideo this year, and it's basically students presenting information about themselves. So I can play a little clip of that. So this is a student project that they created.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Grace, j'ai 11 ans. J'habite à Charlotte dans une maison jaune.
So she's put the music in the background, all the slides, and recorded her voice.
J'aime framboise, les frappés et fromage. Je n'aime pas les fraises. J'aime le football, le ski et le cross. Je n'aime pas le baseball. C'est ma famille. Au revoir.
Okay, so that's a finished product that each child did. And we also have I don't know how we're doing on time. I feel like we're going.
Do we have time to show you
That's
French?
it. We're not going to stop you, I promise.
Okay, all right, so anyway, then I
French
have
weather
one last video of, so students presenting a weather report. After they watched weather reports, they researched the weather in different French-speaking countries, and they actually looked online, found a weather report, and then created one themselves. I think, so that's it.
Venue avec le froid météo.
Nous sommes à Saint-Denis-de-David et Québec.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Guillaume, Bernard et Bruno. Jeudi, le 11 décembre, il fait 32 degrés, il fait froid et il neige. Vendredi, le 12 décembre, il fait 26 degrés, il fait du soleil et froid.
So there's an example of that. They've got a whole slideshow going in the background. They can't really see that much. So, yeah, okay, so we have our last little bit with culture. Do you want to talk about that, Tika?
Oh, we just took some images
Yeah.
from, one thing that's always being drilled into language teachers is you're not just teaching the language, you're teaching about understanding other people and that other people have lives that are not like what you think is the normal everyday life we live here in northern Vermont. And so we try to bring in a lot of the cultural celebrations because they are often the fun ways of teaching about it. These are piñatas, tiny piñatas, only about maybe less than a foot high that students made decorated. And what other image did we have?
And then we have one of a king cake.
King cake goes back to Mardi Gras time. It's actually traditional from January 6th on. The whole carnival period, people will be eating king cakes this is French and Spanish. Any Latin-based country, they will be eating these as part of the celebration. So I know personally I don't work culture into every day of my class. It's not feasible. But we really do try to get them familiar with the maps and the capitals, and occasionally I'll show them some travel videos. It's hard to find them in the target language, but we're finding some about children growing up in Central American countries. We just recently got a few of those, so it's an ongoing, like with Heidi, what Heidi was saying, it's ongoing for us too. Things change, you adapt, you say, that project really wasn't so good, or oh yes, that was great, that's why we do the Mardi Gras every year. The piñatas took forever to decorate because they cut out the strips of tissue paper and then they wrapped it around and they glued it on and they cut fringes. And at the beginning they were really excited, and near the end the girls actually were letting the ball drop and saying, I'm done. I said, but the head's plain, you haven't decorated it. I don't care, I want it to be like that. So you learn as you try out these different activities. And Sarah and I have been at it for a pretty long time, so we've learned a lot through the years. And anything else to add?
No, that's it.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Any particular
Any
questions from anyone?
I just have a question about the structure, like, so you start with Spanish and then you try French and then you get to choose.
So in 2008, I think it was, that we had committees and we had sent out surveys to the town, and the consensus was children should start younger. And I mean, Clyde, you were on that committee. We talked about Chinese. We talked about what should we start with younger, and Spanish got the vote. I don't remember how that was arrived at. And so yes, they have Spanish right through 4th grade. In 5th grade, the idea was that they have French and Spanish for 6 weeks on and off, so they get a feeling for what the other language is like. And right now we're getting the parents' feedback, what they would like them to study next year. We can't always guarantee it just because of numbers. You can't have all boys taking one language and all girls taking the other, or something imbalanced like that.
And is there a definite trend? Have you noticed one language is
I would say it's pretty equal.
Amazingly.
Some years, there's some years, see, our structure has changed. We're back down to 2 classes. We used to have 3. So we could spread kids among 3 groups. So now that we're all up until we became 50-50, it was always, every year it was back and forth. There was larger Spanish, there was larger French.
Yeah,
Spanish.
amazingly. Very rarely did someone
yeah.
not get the language they want.
I think we thought that
Few
kids would
times.
want to continue and only take Spanish because that's what they had taken for so long. But I think there's a novelty, and a lot of them were like, "Oh, I know Spanish. Now I want to learn French."
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of it is
Yeah.
driven by what their friends pick.
Yeah.
It took us a while to figure that one out too. What are you taking? Oh, okay, I'm going to take that. So but then we sit down and look at numbers and gender and try to balance things.
I do have one question. Do you get the opportunity to collaborate with other language teachers in the other schools within the district? So I'm just wondering, as our 8th graders are going into CVU, into 9th grade, into language studies, do you feel that everyone is essentially on par and equally prepared going into 9th grade CVU, or how does that? I know, for example, we do that a lot with math instruction, that we try to ensure that everyone is on par with that each school is teaching the same thing.
Comparing with Shelburne and Williston.
Right.
Well, I think, we certainly meet with the language teachers from Shelburne, Charlotte, Williston, and Heinsberg. We have probably met more in the past than we do now, but we still have days that we meet and get together. We get feedback from the high school. Intermittently, every so often, but generally, and also kids come back and let us know whether they are prepared or not. And it seems like the kids from Charlotte, or from what I've heard, they're generally very well prepared for language, whichever they choose, French or Spanish.
Great.
But I don't have any evidence, any proof.
Yeah, last year, well, this was feedback from the Spanish teacher, all the kids who had taken Spanish, who stayed with Spanish at CCS, were able to go right on to Spanish 2. Occasionally, you'll have a student who struggles and says, I really think I should start over with Spanish 1. I think I'd be more comfortable. And often, I would agree with some of my students that, that they've gone so far, but Spanish 2 starts to move pretty fast in high school, and that if they could benefit. But again, this year, there might be 1 out of 25, and some years there are none at all. So that varies, but sometimes they come back and say, wow, you know, Spanish 2 isn't that hard, because we already know the preterite, you already taught it. So feedback has been pretty good.
There is some opportunity for some kids to even jump higher in language. CVU is offering kids, if you take a placement exam,
That's
true.
because they
We've had
have
a few
kids
jump
coming
ahead.
in and out of all different situations, so they'll say, if you want to go into French 3, Spanish 3, or whatever, you take a placement exam.
And we've had that with a handful too.
Yeah, so there's some kids
Yeah.
that maybe want to, work harder, or they've come from a different school, they have more or they have background in their families or whatnot. So CVU is quite good at letting people move where they need to be. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Really appreciate it from everybody. Thank you.
You're not using this projection?
No, we like that. You can leave it if you want.
Oh, okay. Actually, but I'm gonna have to log out. Sorry.
I don't blame
Leave
you.
my account open in the high school.
No. Thank you very much. Very informative. Thank you. Moving on, 5.0, reports to the board. We're starting with the principal's report. Do you want to start, or does anybody have a question to start? Barbara can highlight a couple things.
I'll
ahead.
start, I'll
Yeah.
highlight, okay. Just a celebration, be sure to check out the Charlotte News. This Thursday is the expected date that there will be an insert that is 4 pages, 4 full pages, that is created by our students. They have worked extremely hard. It was an exploratory. They had to work harder probably than they thought they might have to. Most of them said, yeah, we get why we're doing this, and they just deserve some celebration. So when you read it and you see those kiddos, do give them some acknowledgement for working hard at doing some high-quality writing and editing some more, because that's what is required when you're about to publish. So they went through the full process, and they're going to have an end product.
Very nice.
Yes. So let's see, staffing update. Just want to give the biggest theme through this is that it's based on what the school needs, these 3 adjustments here. As some decisions we were trying to make based on information that we had back in December. We know so much more now. There's also been some changes in some people's retirement and what we've seen as end results. And that informs why these changes are happening and that they're being proposed. Again, it's based on what the school needs. Financially, they all will fit. They do fit within our budget. And when I sit with you during the retreat, I will go through how it exactly fits so you could see that. So that's to come, that I'll be sharing that piece. Another piece around the facilities update. Again, it's listening to input from families. I believe we have talked about this before, based on Sustainability Committee, Safety Team Committee, as well as the Hope and Dreams meeting, which was more recent. It has been consistent that people are asking for our entryway to be more welcoming, safe, and energy efficient. And again, we're in a position that we do have it within our budget. We can do this. So we're going to make a few updates to that end.
Maureen, can I just ask a
Yes.
clarifying question about the front desk administrative assistant and the bookkeeper? So you might try to make that one full-time position?
No. So when we first did the budget, we put the bookkeeper as 1.0. Why did we do that? Because that was the staffing that we had, and we were increasing, not that we needed more bookkeeping time. We knew that. It was for her to do more administrative assistant work. That she knew, that was the, so when her decision was to leave, then we moved it to where bookkeeping should be, and just based on just numbers, it allows us to be able to fund a front desk administrative assistant, which is what we do know is needed based on being welcoming and to be able to support the school. So we were trying to find another way to do it, and then an opportunity opened up. One last one is the community partnerships. So I wanted to bring your attention there. And so I first speak to that has been a priority to build those partnerships. It's something that you have asked of me from the start. And then an opportunity brought itself to us. And so the Charlotte Children's Center just asked to speak to us regarding a possibility of renting space, specifically our preschool room and the outdoor play area. And it is something of course, for you to decide, but I'll just tell you why it's worth consideration. One is keeping the youngest children in our school is only a benefit because we have those families in the school and they'll see how wonderful Charlotte Central is, and they're very likely to stay. Number two, the transitions between the pre-K and K, it'll again continue to be seamless, and the learning that they'll have from each other will only support further our MTSS system and every child's learning. And then the last one that I want to point out is remaining connected to the community has been a commitment that we have talked about, that you've asked of me, and that we've made an effort to reach out. And this is an example where one of the prize jewels, the school, becomes connected directly to the community and keeps those connections strong. So for those reasons, perhaps it's worthy of your consideration. It is, details are not set. Pretty much it'll be your decision and your direction whether you want me to continue with any conversations or not.
I think it would be fantastic if those conversations continue and we get somewhere where we can talk about details. That would be great. Having them in the school would be fantastic. Jeff, you were going to ask a question?
It sounds like there's much more information to come as you have those discussions. They've identified the age group. It's pre-K?
It'll be pre-K. Mm-hmm.
And the only other thing I wonder about is how this affects like our liability insurance, things like that, taking on a younger group of kids. So, but I think it's a great idea, and the Children's Center has needed opportunities to expand for some period of time, so it seems like it would be a great merger.
We have the space. We could use the money.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that works.
It's a great idea. Do you have 2 seconds to elaborate a little bit on just what I don't even know too much about their ownership structure, their funding structure. I mean, pre-K education now falls on us anyhow? Like, how does that all work?
So I can kind of overview a little bit in it, how it involves why they approach. So Charlotte Children's Center already as an entity, when Act 62 and then Act 166 was passed, started essentially, they operate in their main building, a full-day infant all the way through pre-K program, and you probably know that. When Act 62 came up, there was a opportunity for them to expand for families who just want the half-day through the 10-hour a week that's funded through the partnership with the school. So they rent space outside of their location right now at the church, and so essentially they are a community-based partner that designed a program for families looking to use funding. So to kind of answer your question, they're going to run a program regardless, and it is most of the students attending, because they're a partner program with us, are attending through our funding, Act 166 funding. This is just an opportunity to bring them closer, quite honestly, and kind of all the benefits that Barbara Ann outlined. But yeah, that's how it's connected. They'd still be a totally private entity. You'll see some of that in the details around the liability, but they're their own program. They employ their own staff. They'll maintain all of that. They have to get their own licensure from AHS to run their program, which comes with it all their insurance requirements. That's the detail that you'll see.
And this
there.
model does exist elsewhere.
Yes. Yep. I don't know if that answers your
Yeah, no,
question.
great, thank you.
Would you back up to the bookkeeper for a minute?
Yes.
Has the bookkeeper, to this point, excuse me, been full-time?
She was previously .8.
Okay. But your assertion is that you can do it with .5?
Yes.
So what was that person for all these years doing with the other .3?
There is some creative uses of her time that can easily be put on other people, like the admin assistant. They do not fall under bookkeeper, and that would be taken off. So I have made the list of exactly all the responsibilities and have been able to assess that.
I get it. Facilities, you really should do something about the signage outside the building, about traffic flow, because most of it's designed for people who already know the rules, like where you enter, where you exit, what's one way, what isn't one way. People unfamiliar with the landscape can be committed to a course of action with their vehicle before they realize what they're supposed to be doing.
Traffic flow signage, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even those of us who know what you're supposed to be doing can be committed to course of action.
And on that subject, further, the traffic backup when people are picking up their kids and dropping them off. I haven't been by for a while, that quitting time, but the last time I was by, it was pretty horrendous. Is it still?
So I am only there one day a week to pick up kids, and that day, which is usually Monday, it's not. Like, if there's 2 cars on the road before the line starts moving, that's unusual. I have not seen it horrendous recently. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen later in the week. I'm not there. But we can take a look at it and see what's going on.
And I think that's an ongoing issue. There's always been an issue with the traffic flow and signage. So I think that's just something that we really have to address. And if we do something with all these new families, let's just say, because there'd be a lot of people traveling to CCS maybe at different times for the, if we do have the Charlotte Children's Center come to school, we just, everybody, people have studied this. There's probably like binders of information on. I remember when I first moved here, Greg was saying that there were, they spent a lot of time on this, but it's always sort of stayed the same way. So I think that is something that there's got to be a better way to do that flagpole pickup. Because on Fridays, it's horrible. Like, that's definitely, like, I'd say there's like 8 cars traveling, in the west, going east to west, trying to get in. And then they're backed up to the stop sign. It's just, that's probably what you saw, was that just, and it's kind of an accident waiting to happen.
Thank you.
Traffic.
We should have that on the agenda as a future discussion item.
Done. It's something that's been out there for a while.
And just tagging on to what Clyde was saying a moment ago, I think that when you drive, so after you do drop off or pick up and you exit back out onto the Heinsberg Road, there's a blind spot there to the left. So cars coming up that hill can't see that people are exiting out, and the person exiting out can't see a car coming up that hill. And that's, just in my limited view, I think that that's one of the worst spots. And I think some sort of signage that warns, even though people are supposed to be going 30 miles an hour, we know that sometimes that's not the case, et cetera.
Sometimes.
Particularly in the mornings. I think that if there was something warning people that there's a blind entrance, I don't know if that would help or not, but I've had a couple of occasions where that's been a concerning spot.
Yeah, and definitely like the Shelburne Community School, where I don't know how you get one of those flashing lights, but I cannot believe it's 30 miles an hour in front of our school. I brought this up at the very first board meeting. You know, coming over that rise, it should be 25. 30 is
Right,
fast.
right.
That really means
That is
35.
Yeah. I also have some questions actually, Barbara Ann, about the behavior systems coordinator.
Yes.
So this position currently, I'm understanding, is a .8 position, is that right? And it's moving to a 1.0 position, right? And I'm just wondering how, so this was a new position this year, correct? And how do you feel like this, I don't have a sense of how this functioned this year. I don't, how successful was the person or was the position carried out and the functions of the position carried out and your assessment of that?
So when I first presented this position, I saw it as even in the title, systems, that the person would be working at the systems level in order to build the capacity. They'd have the expertise and they'd have the knowledge and be working with the teachers directly and the paraeducators directly to build their capacity. When we started it, we were just finding money. We didn't have enough to pay for a professional level position, although we did have it full-time. With that, we ended up with a different model in execution versus what the ideal that I presented to you as what we needed. Someone to work at the systems level that's going to help come up with the systems, help carry them out through building the capacity. That's the key piece. Otherwise, we're still going to be reactive and not focusing on enough of the prevention and what systems need to change. So this adjustment, by making it full-time, is to be able to attract the caliber of person who can carry this out, as well as to have the person be a solid part of this systems work, and then having it be a professional level position is to get the expertise that the person can coach. Truly, to be able to train teachers, you have to be coming in with expertise. You have to be able to come in with a level of knowledge that can help another teacher. If that's not the case, then you ended up with something that's not as effective in that, towards that goal. So in assessing where we were, we had the vision of what we wanted. We couldn't quite put it in place. We didn't have the finances to put it into place. We learned a lot. This is in response to, this is what we need to be able to move forward, believing that we can change the entire culture of the school if you work at the systems level and you build capacity, and we won't have any more of these reactions. We can get there, I believe it. I've already come up with the exact things that need to be done. But we didn't have the capacity with the other person to do that because of the type of role that they had. Does that answer?
It does. I'm wondering how then this position coordinates and works with guidance, because many of the things that you describe in terms of working with teachers, working within the classroom, improving the culture, I think, of increasing positive behavior. I see guidance working in those areas very hard, it feels like. And so I'm wondering how this position is different from guidance and also, I guess, and it's some of my bias because I think really well-skilled guidance counselors, like the two professionals we have, I think are very, very skilled. I'm not sure. I'm just wondering about the thinking around, as opposed to augmenting those two positions, which now are not full-time positions, either one of them, even though they both carry high caseloads and do a lot of in-classroom work and work with parents as well as students, and they're doing student groups and other things. I'm just wondering how the decision-making process around, not augmenting guidance services and moving in this direction instead, and how this is something beyond and different and than what our guidance services currently provide.
I believe that our school counselors have attempted to do this at the expense of some of the other work that they need to do, because this has been calling to them, and what they've been doing is responding. They've been in the reactive mode, helping in emergency situations. We've decreased that some by changing some levels of systems. There's a lot more that can be done. Their work needs to be at the kid level, working with kids who need support, families who need support, family systems. That's the level. This other person's not working at the family or the kid level. The other person's working at the systems level. So while they were doing some of that, it was at the loss of them being able to do the work that's directly with the children and teaching. Sometimes they're teaching with children. They will help at, again, the school counselors, they will help at meetings with plans, and they're at a level of very importance, working right around with the kids. They were being pulled to they were going to meetings. When I looked at how many meetings the school counselors were going to, that didn't match where I thought their time should be. They need to be working with the kids, the families, and they are working with teachers. But it's different to be a coach. And at the systems, there is some coaching that they will do as well, but it's a little bit different. One is looking at how do you best support the social emotional development of a child? The other is how do you respond to misbehaviors? What is your system that you're going to, how do you know what to do? What is the, so almost BCBA, what is the work of why is someone behaving the way they're behaving? And then what is the system that needs to happen in the classroom to do that? The school counselors are not trying to help them change the systems in their classroom around behavior. They're helping with the child who's having a hard time. So there's different levels of it. By sorting this out, I believe we're going to meet the goal that I think we all share, is having a place that feels safe, comforting, everybody belongs, caring, kind, all of these things. So the needs are different, and speaking with the school counselors, they saw that as well. So this was in collaboration, we came up with this.
Thank you.
Does that help?
It does. I mean, I may have a more traditional view of, I see guidance or guidance counselors as doing the deeper work, which hopefully then prevents some of the more challenging behaviors that can occur.
Yes.
Whereas if we have someone who's spending a lot of their time managing behavior, I'm not sure that we're putting enough time into the deeper root causes of what's going on. And so it's a matter of disbursement of limited resources and how much what are we putting in terms of funds to our counselor, the amount of time counselors have 4 days a week, each of them, to spend doing that deeper work versus having someone who is kind of having to move in once the problem occurs. Do you see that? I mean,
and that's not their role, to move into the problem. That's what we have probably more so now. This is more at the systems level and intended to do, as I said, create the system, work by building the capacity of the teachers, that they understand how to have, whether the system is at the classroom level system, the school-wide level system, so that if someone walks in the halls of the school, it is calm and kind. You need a system for that. You need, how's it going to look at lunch and recess? What's the system for that? How are we going to train the paraeducators? The school counselors, they can't do that training. They're working with the children. So there is, I will, at the next meeting, I will have something written out so you could visually see some of the differences in those roles.
Thank you very much.
I have another question along those lines. So last year, there's a lot of talk about behavior, especially fourth graders, and we saw a lot of data. There's kind of the information on, referrals to the planning room and things like that. So I feel a little bit like out of the loop. Like everything seems relatively quiet from my perspective, but I have no idea really what's going on at school. If people, our faculty, and how are people feeling, as far as behavior? Because before, like a year ago, didn't it seem a little bit like things were out of control? Like we had a lot of people in the audience up in arms about behavior, and there were statistics to support it, facts about referrals. And so I'm just wondering sort of what's going on, because did we have a report in December on behavior? And then were we going to have another one at the end of the year, like last year? Is that something that, or maybe we should put that on, or next year have some sort of community education about what's going on with the behavior systems coordinator, or who this person is? Because I feel like I don't hear anything at all, which I take that as a good sign, but maybe that's not.
It is a good sign. Things are in control. We are in control. It is still not the model that I'd like to see, that I presented to all of you, that believing in having systems that support the prevention, that more energy goes there than in reaction. We right now still have a planning room. Planning room is still set up. It functions well, but it still functions as a place that if you're not managing in your room, the child goes there. I don't fully believe that is what we want. We want to build the capacity of the teachers to be able to respond and meet the needs of the children and have other tools in their toolbox. That's why this role is there, to build those tools. There are many other methods, and so it's because I have a bigger vision of what the school will feel like upon entry and in the classrooms, or rather, the classrooms are already there, in the non-classrooms, in the recess, in the lunch, in the hallways, on the buses. But that comes from changing a climate, which is it's a mindset change. It's a huge change. That's why needing a role like this, because it's a big job. It's different than what we've tackled before. We're going to try to adjust how we function, how we look at children and behavior at a bigger level, because the potential for Charlotte Central to be absolutely kind all the time is there. I believe it so strongly, but we need more help to do that. So saying that, yes, everything's working, but believing we want to go further than that. We want to have it where no one would ever consider stepping foot into Charlotte Central and saying anything mean. Why? They would never, not even consider that. I believe it's possible. So it's because I want to go further.
I do think it would be helpful, though, each month, if there were incidents that occurred in the course, between school board meetings where there are suspensions or in-school suspensions or bullying incidents or just, those more sort of critical incident kinds of things that are occurring. I think it would be useful just to know about that. And that's not to diminish all the good things that are going on in terms of, it does seem like it's been a much quieter year, but it would be good to just, I think it'd be helpful to be appraised if there have been some particular incidents that have come along, so that if we're asked questions in the community or someone has concerns, if I received a phone call and somebody is upset because their child, they filed a bullying complaint and they don't know if or they want to and they don't know how that process works, or maybe they feel like they haven't gotten the response they needed, or I'd like to have some sense of that, just if those more concerning incidents if something occurs in the course of the month.
Is that what you'd like to have on a regular basis? Is that the best format?
So we'd have to define critical, but as part of a principal report, something along the lines of suspensions come to us.
But there are in-school suspensions. There are
numbers. Are you just looking for numbers?
I think one of the things you need to be thinking about is how close you're coming to violating.
Well, it would have to be anonymous, obviously.
Right.
Violating what?
FERPA rights?
Since it's such a small school.
Yeah. It's a small school. So I would I'm not saying that there isn't some way to get at what you're asking for, but I just would want you to be thinking that it is a small school. And probably everybody sitting around the table knows, who you're talking about if Barbara Ann comes and says, oh, we had a bullying incident at school this week.
So just an example of this, last year, and I was but being on the diversity committee, people I know in the community who came and with real concerns about, who have children of color, felt that their children, that there was a situation with one of their children that was not being handled very well. I referred them to Greg Marino. But, we are in a small community. People do communicate. I think that I don't think that we need to know the names and the specifics, but if there's and I think Mark is right, I think we would have to define what critical means, but I think that there should be some relaying of information if there's really concerning incidents at school. It doesn't seem to me that that's information that we should not have at all. Unless I'm not understanding.
I disagree. I think it's good to have regular updates on broad measures of behavior because that's been a concern historically. I don't think board members are supposed to be out in the community getting engaged in particular cases or engaging parents outside of a formal setting, whether it's through the administration or something that rises to the board, whether it's suspension or whatever comes to our level. But I don't think, I'm not big on the critical reporting thing. I think a broad array of measures of behavior, given sort of the history and the progress we hope we're making, a periodic accounting of that is worthwhile.
So we did talk last year about more regular behavioral type reports, and we've not really followed up on it. Maybe it doesn't have to be once a month, but a broad table that we've seen, the bars from different grades, maybe quarterly contained within the principal's report, something like that would be informational, especially as we go forward and we're implementing new procedures, see if they're working going forward.
My question is it to help assess if the procedures and the new systems are effective? Because that would be a different body of information I provide you. Or if you're just wanting to hear that, if you see this, you see every, fourth grade, fourth grade, you will see a pattern. You're going to want to know about it. And then that is, you're getting into something a little more personal because there are things going on that are just, it's a personal situation that is happening. Doesn't mean it's out of control. It might be completely part of the system, the plan, but it's not. So again, are you looking for information to know the accountability for what we're trying to do? Is it working? And that kind of assessment, that would look different than just that you have that information.
I'd say that what you said first, because the data was what we were given in the past, which doesn't mean that's what we want.
I'm not trying to give you what you're looking for.
Right.
If there's a certain situation that just recurs, but not because of us, it's just that is what is going on, you won't get what the information you're looking for.
We're going way beyond agenda warnings here. This is a discussion worth having. I think if we set aside 15 minutes or so at the retreat and talk about it,
Okay.
I think that's fine.
I don't think this can be a much longer conversation than we're having here or 15 minutes at the retreat. But I don't think it should be done at the retreat because I think we're obligated to have it on RETN so that anybody who's interested can hear it.
All right. If we limited our discussion, we could do it at the business meeting in June. If not, we'd have to push it to September. I think Claude's right. You're right. It should be on RETN. So we'll push it till the June meeting. And lots of good points here about information needed, information not needed, or appropriate at the board level. We've seen reports before on behavior. They're very statistical. That's what I was thinking of as appropriate. again, and I'll take part of the blame, I'll take all the blame, fine. We were supposed to have more, something that was gonna be brought to us more, and I didn't, haven't followed up as much as I should. So, again,
Yeah, I think we all need to just come up, like, whatever this thing is,
Yeah.
it's new.
Yeah.
We're creating something new that we have to figure out what it
well, and I
is.
don't think we have to reinvent the wheel either. I mean, we
The
have.
wheel before wasn't that great because it was, kind of skewed because it was like, oh, this is the first time we're using it, there's a spike in reporting, and then,
You know
all
what-
the data became irrelevant.
Yeah, you know what it was? It was time to move on.
Okay, we're moving on. I have listed retirement acknowledgements, but we did that last month. It was in your report last month.
He was.
So we'd like to acknowledge everybody we acknowledged last month. Thank you for your service.
I just have one more question about the behavior systems coordinator.
I'm sorry, you can't have any.
Is that the same, so this is a new hire, so the person who's currently doing that job?
She left,
Oh, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
resigned,
okay,
due to not enough time and not enough money.
okay.
Does anybody want to pull anything out of the CSSU debrief in particular? I'll mention two things. Watch your Google Mail. There's been some problems. And two, specifically mentioned is the support being provided from the CSSU to cover the bookkeeper position in Charlotte till the end of the year. Third quarter FMR, we're on target to have a surplus at the end of the year. Does anybody want to pull anything out of the FMR? Anybody have any direct questions?
Just confused with surplus before or after the, cash balance that we drew down, or the fund balance. It wasn't entirely obvious to me if we were up or down. It looked like we were, did I read that right? Revenues are down substantially, and that is, just give us like a 2-second
So
explanation on that.
our projected surplus, what we were, our planned deficit was 180,000. And we're only in deficit by 86,749. So we're in the good to 93,000, to
Okay.
51.
Okay, so, fair enough.
So that is taking into account the 180,000.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Revenue is worse and our expenditures are better than expected, so that's why that's how we get our projected surplus.
Act 46 report, any questions in particular? Basically boils down to, we have a vote coming up on June 7th.
Yeah, the question I have has to do with the calendars, as far as next meeting dates. So we are meeting on June 6th as a community?
There's a community hearing forum, just like we have before we have the budget vote on June 6th.
So that's not on the next meeting date, but that's like 6 o'clock at,
6 o'clock at the
Okay.
school. I'll send out a formal reminder.
and so this school governance merger vote that was given out at the CSSU meeting,
Yep.
is this something we're going to put in the Charlotte News?
That will be in the news, yes.
And I just worry about how we're going to get the vote out. How do we let people know about this and make sure it's just,
We're going to talk about that a little bit in communications.
okay.
Do I expect there to be a rush to the polls on June 7th? No, I don't. But yes, we have to get it out there. Moving on to discussion matters, policy. There was a fulsome discussion at the CSSU meeting about about search and seizure. I think there'll be some more discussion about it at the next policy meeting, Clyde. Does anybody have anything they wish to add or discuss in particular?
What was the tone of things at the CSSU meeting? I missed that part of it.
Well, I'll let Eric speak because he was speaking. But
It wasn't just me, but there were some
yeah.
questions around sort of what the search and seizure, there's two parts of it. There's the law enforcement and school officials, and just sort of the safeguards to protect students' rights relative to search and seizure.
Do any of you have opinions on these things that you want shared?
So my view, especially about the strip search, I echo what Eric had said at the meeting, and I know Cindy took some notes. And maybe if anybody has anything in particular, especially, you can email Clyde.
It's basically down to a couple of things. One was strip search seems like a pretty invasive, controversial thing, particularly with minors, and they moved it from school officials doing it to some unnamed third party, which I don't know if where we're gonna have a third party strip searcher on demand, but the sense was that it probably belonged outside of, if something were to come to that, I can't imagine exactly what would require that, but it would probably raise to the level of a law enforcement action. If there was something that sort of threatening that it required that kind of a procedure. And the other thing was just down to, there were questions other people had about personal devices, compelling students to, make those available, and beyond, their own school-issued computers or anything that they do on the school network.
I thought in both situations, Cindy made it clear that once something got to that level, any of those things, the strip search, that it was not something that was just happening in isolation, that legal counsel is already involved. Like it sounded like there's this whole wraparound service that CVU would provide if it was happening at the high school level. Like it sounds like they have, to me, I felt like there was a clear way that they would handle a situation like that, where there would be somebody acting on the minor's behalf.
So I guess that was the only question, is the way it reads and it's written was different from the way she described it. So just to have some clarity on which way it is.
Did that make sense? And to be clear, strip searching is not a massive problem at CCS. However, if we're going to have a policy on it, it should be written in a way that we're all comfortable with it.
I have a problem with this. Before we get to strip searches, I think search and seizure by school personnel is questionable. If you have a visibly dangerous situation that you can take action on, that's one thing. But this whole thing is so gray and amorphous. And as you mentioned, talking about minor children, to be doing any of this stuff, I think without advising their parents, I don't care what the law has to say about it, is not only wrong, but going to get us in trouble sooner or later. I think if we're going into search and seizure, I think it needs to involve people other than school personnel, most logically law enforcement people. But there could be other solutions, but I have a serious problem with F4, period.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. I mean, just the difference between a school policy F4 that rests on reasonable suspicion versus a law enforcement F5 that goes to probable cause. So you're talking about sort of school conducting searches on any suspicion they might have, but right there in the policy it says first thing they do is turn everything over to the police, and so it just seems like there might be some issues with that.
Well, we'll see what happens. When is the meeting?
I don't know. We'll find out from Cindy in a second.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? 6.2 communications, Board's Corner. As Susan mentioned, there'll be an insert into the Charlotte News about the Act 46 vote. There's been a couple posts on Front Porch Forum about it. I'll do so again to make sure everybody's aware that it's upcoming. I went to the select board and talked about it a couple weeks ago. They had advertised it. It was not a very well attended meeting, but Above and beyond that, which is yeah, and there's.
Is this going out?
That is going out to voters, yes, announcing the vote as well.
So that's being sent from CSSU to our town as well?
It's being sent from the study committee.
From the study
Okay.
committee, yeah. It's not technically the SU. Above and beyond that, we always have opportunities to place a board's corner into the Charlotte News if someone would like to write something besides Act 46. There's lots of stuff going on at the school. Please do so. I'll leave that open. We have a meeting in 2 weeks. I'll be asking again. Action matters. We have 2 action matters tonight.
Mark, sorry.
Yes.
Really quickly, May 31st at 8 o'clock is the policy meeting. Sorry.
Thank you.
And I should ask a clarifying question about what you just said about writing an article. So I'm not sure how that, so procedurally.
If you would like to write an article, which
Well,
I am taking your volunteering
that was my
to
fear
do.
in raising this question, but does that need to go through the board first, or what's the protocol for?
So we have
How that
space
works.
pretty much whenever we want it through the Charlotte News. Typically, I've written articles and sort of sent them around and let everybody edit, and it's good for me because people check my spelling. And it can be from anything from when the budget's up to something we find, going on at school. If SBAC scores have come out, reporting those out type of thing. Anything that strikes your fancy, hopefully about our school. Yeah, and they're not long. I mean, it takes a little bit of time, but they're happy to have anywhere between 500 and 700 words, and call it a board's corner. So, I won't hold you to it this one time.
It does seem timely right now at the end of the year.
Yeah.
A lot of the things, Barbara Ann, that you've put together in terms of student accomplishments and the things that Naomi sends out on Front Porch Forum probably could be combined and written into, I don't think it hurts to resend again out to folks. So I'll see about taking a
And
look.
actually, I meant to mention that the newsletter going out once a week on Front Porch Forum has been a huge hit. People have mentioned it to me. It's great to have that out in the community. So, 7.0, 7.1 personnel. You all received materials. 7.1, we have a leave of absence request from Miss Kelly Boudelier. Do I have a motion to approve that leave of absence?
So why does it say confidential materials for board only?
We, especially the stuff, resumes, that sort of stuff that has personal information comes out confidentially.
So we can discuss this?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we're not, this is
Okay.
just, we're going through the Robert's Rules motions here.
So I find that we are in this position again where we have a loop potentially that's not going to work the way it was intended. So if she takes leave of absence next year,
Let's, Eric's right, let's do this correctly. Can I have a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
to approve her leave of absence?
Yeah.
Just so that we
Just so
can
we can
move,
get it.
so
Okay,
we can move
okay,
to
okay,
discussion.
Second.
Second from Susan. Do I have discussion?
Okay. So if she takes a leave of absence, then that means one of the 2 years, obviously, she's not going to be present for in the loop. So again, we had that with Katie Frazier not doing the 4th grade of her 3-4 loop. So it seems like repeatedly looping doesn't work. So I just want to put it out there that I wonder if we should just not have this. I know it says somewhere that there's no expectation that your child is going to loop but we still call it looping, but then we keep having these issues. So anyway, that's one comment that I wanted to make. And the other one was, so Kelly applied for the job of the science coordinator position after she was denied the request she had last time, correct?
Yes.
So, is that, so that's a full-time job, the science coordinator? No.
0.6.
0.6, okay. So somebody can apply, this is, what I'm getting at is what happened with Mrs. Cianciola last summer, where the music teacher had talked to HR about applying for a different job. And we were sort of blindsided and had to hire a music teacher in August, I think it was. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like kind of out of nowhere. For us, we were suddenly left without a music teacher. So is that normal behavior where you can apply for another job? Like what?
Kelly hasn't signed a contract.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what
So
was
she was
that?
offered a job.
She was offered a job.
She applied for a job, was offered the
She came
job.
to you and asked for a job share.
Contract, yeah.
She hadn't
So
signed her
at the point
contract
that
with
she
us.
signs her contract, she would need to honor that contract. Or we have the recourse of calling the Agency of Education and saying, this person had a contract with us, is not keeping it, and they have then the option to withhold her license for a year in a Vermont school. If somebody's leaving, going someplace out of Vermont, we have no recourse. So, but in this situation that you're having to discuss and take an action on tonight, Kelly asked for an extension, I'm assuming, to the contract. Came to you and asked for a job share. That was denied. And then she applied for the position that's opened up at CSSU and simultaneously asked you for a leave of absence.
So the hard part is because when we made the decision not to grant, when it was voted on, her job share, it was kind of this assumption that it's a loop, the looping and all of that kind of stuff. And then now we find ourselves in this situation where she's asking to, it's almost like she has a 2-year contract because she's a looping teacher. You know, like it's kind of implied that.
Right, but
so
no,
it's kind
but
of
we
the-
don't have
the gray
2-year
area of a
contracts
job.
with teachers. That's the thing. We don't have 2-year contracts. We have 1-year contracts.
But it's almost like, but she has a 2-year position with this loop, this, like, this
Right.
loop
So the part
concept.
that you have control over is you can say no. The part she has control over is she can, and I have not had a conversation with Kelly. I want to make sure everybody knows that. So I have no idea what she's, maybe she'll sign her contract tomorrow. But that's the part she has control over. You get to control whether or not you let her job share or whether or not you give her a leave of absence. She gets to control whether or not she wants to sign that contract. And I can't tell you, where that's going to go. Honestly, I really don't know. I've not had a single conversation with her.
So Barbara Ann, why don't you just tell us what it looks like granting a leave of absence? She is a second grade teacher. I don't know if she's on the beginning of a loop or end of a loop. I don't know where that is.
So again, this year she wasn't here much, so nobody really has the connection there because she had maternity leave. So in terms of impact on that loop, there would be none. They haven't had her this year.
But that was the second year per loop.
Huh?
Did she start
For a little bit.
Till November, right?
Yeah, so but very short time. So that piece of the looping doesn't really play into here. And when someone takes a leave of absence, we do a 1 year, because it's a 1 year leave of absence, so we do a 1 year hire, and we do a full process, including watching them teach, two interviews, a full team of teachers involved in that entire process, so we could get the best person. And at this time, we have done what is normal protocol, so that in case you did say yes, we are ready to jump and move forward, what you do is you post an anticipated, so that we could see what's out there and make certain that we don't lose out, because if we do wait too long and you just start to do the posting, we would talk about we're almost going to be another 4 weeks out. And then it gets to be a little bit late in the process, and that's when you don't have the same choices, because we want always the best.
And you would expect the hired teacher would move right into Kelly's slot. We wouldn't be moving teachers around
No.
the school.
But that person would start with the loop in September as a first grade teacher and then leave, and then Kelly would come back for the second year, for second grade. So we'd have, correct? So she'd do like half of the loop. So as far as if we think looping is the best thing for first and second graders.
There's a real question on the table, not just from this discussion, around looping. That is one that has come from teachers as well as I've heard from parents. Both have given enough input that says maybe it's worthy of a conversation in this coming year around looping.
And that really affects how I'm going to vote on this, because, if, it's kind of, I feel like I'm in a kind of a funny situation, because having a first grader right now, and, I don't know, so it's kind of like, are we breaking apart the looping concept so that then we can look at this leave of absence? Because that group of children will have 2 different teachers, no matter, based on whether or not we do this leave of absence. But if we don't grant her the leave of absence, they get to have a great teacher for 2 years to do the looping. So
If she stays.
If you look
whoever this person is, yeah. So he, she.
precedent this year, based on people having children and other family needs, we haven't been able to be consistent that people have had a full year even of a teacher, which is probably more impactful than even over 2 years. I think the key pieces are ensuring that we hire the best qualified person, a person who understands how to step in and make sure that they're providing what's best for children. And I think that we've been doing our very best, and I think we've been quite successful in that.
But we found that in the past, that when you're hiring for an interim, it's like a 1-year position, because this teacher, Kelly would have, let's just say, she has a leave of absence. So you want the best and the best possible candidate. Not many of those people are going to want to take a job where they know there's only 1 year. So it's like already limiting who we can, our pool of applicants, because you started school and then you have to bounce the next year, or, it's just, if we're trying to hire the best possible teacher.
I am aware also that there's standard practice that people have been granted in this SU leave of absences after having a child, or to be able to pursue an SU position. So there is some precedent to that.
Yeah.
Good, Glenn.
As an aside, before we get to the actual answer about the vote, your comments about discussion, RE, looping are essentially editorial. A conversation about something doesn't constitute a fact or legitimize a particular behavior. After this meeting, you all need to go home and think about the conversation we're having and reflect on how bizarre it is. We're not in the business of hiring people so they can take leaves of absence to go do this other job or that other job or whatever. We're in the business of hiring people who are best qualified to teach the children, with the expectation that that's what they're going to do. We presume that selection process played out in this person's case. If she was good enough to be hired as the best candidate, there are expectations that go with that. And one of them is not, I want to take a leave of absence so I can do some other teaching job or coordinating job for a year. So the answer's got to be no. I mean, this is surreal.
Any questions, anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's disappointing to me that that's, how people are approaching the job when, particularly in an environment where we've got, we've had budget challenges, we've had volatile enrollment swinging up and down. We're doing the best we can to keep together sort of some continuity and some high standards of delivering education to the kids, and then everybody's should be pulling in the same direction. I mean, I can't imagine the hours that you put in, everything in the principal's report that's going on both within the walls and outside of the walls of the school that you're doing. And I agree with Clyde, to have someone approach the job as a discretionary thing that has to conform to their personal schedule or whims isn't ideally the way we'd like to see people approach a teaching role. I don't know.
I don't disagree with your stance on this, but my concern is that we have a teacher who has messaged to us now twice that she does not want to work full-time. And so where she was when she first came into this position in terms of her mindset and her commitment to the work, and where she is today, because her personal life, of course, has changed dramatically, feels very different. So my concern is what level, and this is a hard discussion to have, I think, but will there be a shift in level of commitment and tenacity and, involvement in the job full-time? I'm concerned about that. Because I think that this is someone who is saying, I'm really stretched and I need more personal time in my life. And as we're trying to consider what's in the best interest of the children, we want teachers in every one of our classrooms who are fully there and fully present and giving all of their time, all of their professional time that they can give. And I'm concerned about if we deny this leave and we have someone who comes in who doesn't really want to be there full-time, then are we shooting ourselves in the foot?
I don't think I disagree with you, but the logical conclusion of what you've said is if she doesn't want the job as per the job description, then she should resign and search for the kind of work that can fit her emotional or whatever status and relieve the stress that you're concerned about. That's not our obligation.
There is other considerations, though. This is a profession, let's face it, in our school is 90% female. This is not a situation that affects males the same way. Part of our attraction for attracting good candidates is treating our employees in a way that's flexible when things change for them. Kelly Baudelaire is a well-liked and excellent teacher. Losing her, I think, would be somewhat of a tragedy if the fallback is granting a leave for a year. We've granted many leaves in this board. I don't know. I think there's more. I think there's more to it than just here's the door.
What you're discussing in the end is a process of
Attracting teachers.
creating an even more chaotic situation than education already is. I mean, if your process, your approach for hiring is governed by that kind of attitude, stand by, because this is just a harbinger of how freaky things will get.
We had three maternity leaves this year. I mean, it's
Right,
already.
but so that's the thing, you talk about flexibility. I mean, it's a one-way flexibility street. I mean, there's a maternity leave provision in a collective bargaining agreement that is filled with accommodations for teachers. It's something that we have to live with and respect, and we do, but it's a one-way street. There's a push for greater accommodation to teachers. There's not ever a discussion about, safeguards or accommodations for students and families. It's always about, summers off, maternity leave for a year, another summer. We're talking about what in most professions would be considered substantial accommodation already. So what we're really dealing with is the problem that you described and Barbara Ann described, which is precedent. That somehow there's a sense that we've already given this away, and that we've already abandoned the expectation that people were going to, return to their jobs after maternity leave. So I guess that's another dimension to this, if we feel like we've already ceded that, but I don't know if everybody feels like that's appropriate.
Anything further?
Yeah. So you described what the process is if she takes a leave of absence, right? We hire a teacher for a year. Maybe you get someone good, but that's a limiting factor. What's the process look like if we deny? We don't know, right?
I don't think we know. It depends on if she signs a contract at that point.
But then that gives us the flexibility that we don't have right now.
Well, or does it set in motion a cascade of some sort of, collective bargaining agreement series of licensure shuffles all around and up and down? Or are we able to, is there a disruption if a teacher quits, it's different than a RIF, right? So we can.
Right, yeah.
So it doesn't create a whole host of cascading havoc around
It
staff.
doesn't, it doesn't have to, for sure,
So it's basically between hiring a one-year person or hiring a permanent person for that classroom.
And hiring with the assumption, so I just kind of have to go into this with this. The assumption is that that class would loop. So in the fall, that first, Kelly's class, or whatever we want to call it, that incoming first grade, would loop. So all the kids going into first grade next year are under the impression that they're looping with that teacher. So Kelly Boudelier, and then who's the partner teacher?
Chris Gerson.
So Chris Gerson. So everyone's operating with that assumption, right? For the fall,
Right.
that's a 2-year loop. So even though there's discussion about looping, nothing would really be determined affecting the fall start of a loop, right?
Are you asking if the plan at this point is that there would be a loop?
Yes.
As of today, there is.
Okay.
That sounds very qualified. That means that tomorrow there could not be. So are you committed to looping or are you hedging?
There's a lot of discussion around the commitment to looping.
And when would that become something that we act on? Would it be the following school year? Or is it something that could happen for the fall? How fast do things like this change? Because looping's been a, CCS thing forever, it sounds like.
At any point, it would be disrupting wherever the decision was, it would disrupt somebody's loop.
Right.
So it couldn't be like, oh, there's a perfect time when to, so it would be next year, the discussion would be made regarding that following year.
For the following year.
Okay. Anyone? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those against?
Nay.
7.1.2, nomination of an elementary teacher. This is offering a position to a teacher already in our school, Natasha. I said that wrong. Anyway, you all have seen her resume and where she comes from. Do I have a motion to approve this hire?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Does it mean we're going to have a stable?
Excuse me?
We're going to have a stable now?
It's a one-year position.
Stable as in where you keep horses. She's an equestrian.
Funny.
Yes, that's in the budget for next year. It's going to replace the Quonset.
It's to help with the composting.
All those in
Quonset
favor?
hut on the agenda.
Aye. Say
Oh,
aye.
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 All those against? Abstain?
Aye.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? A second? Anybody want to pull anything out? I should ask that first. Motion, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Director's comments, anyone? Okay.
I'll comment on the circus. That was a lot of fun for those of you who went to it. It was a blast.
Yeah, that was a lot of work went into that, so thanks to the PTO and everybody involved. I'm going to confirm our next meeting dates. May 26th, we have our annual retreat. June 6th is the hearing before the vote. June 21st, we have a business meeting before the summer. That seems like a lot of dates, so we won't add any more. We've got nothing for executive session. We are adjourned.